There he is.
Do you know anything about Undertow? I started fishing on rivers when I was 4 years old, and so long as my worm was in the water, nothing else mattered. But as the years rolled on, I realised I was understanding watercraft, and my catch rate was improving. So understanding the water is beneficial. So over the last 5 or so years, I have been putting a lot of time into still waters, and the rule of thumb here is the wind. But I have had too many times when it seems not to be the case. Now, I was always aware of Undertow, but I did not realise that it was such a big factor in fishing still waters. Undertow is the invisible river.
Come on!
Undertow in summer and winter work in much the same way. However, in winter, undertow can be much stronger due to colder conditions. So when we fish in the warmer months and there is a wind, we all know anything trapped in the surface will get pushed towards an obstacle and congest, then making it easier for feeding trout. But sometimes we are unable to make contact with fish in these areas. The fish may well be preoccupied with a food source carried by the undertow. Undertow is complex because we can't see it, but getting the basics of it will help you locate more fish. Fish use undertow to move about the water and to feed, so we can use the basics on any water we fish. But if you have a water you fish more often, then it will be well worth knowing more about the water. You need to know about hidden structures, gullies and so on. Ask your fishery manager. These hidden structures will help you locate even more fish. I am no expert on undertow, but I do understand enough to take advantage and to better my catch rate. So in our minds, we have to strip away the top layer of water to expose the moving undertow. Okay, to start this off, every water is going to be different, and there are a lot of variables such as wind speed, air and water temperatures. So what we will do is go through the basics. Now the first thing to remember is that cold water is heavier than warm water, so the colder water will always force warmer water upwards. Now for those who fish from boats, who are well aware of undertow, as they use this to stabilise their boats. For most of the time, undertow will move in the opposite direction to the wind, and normally the stronger the wind, the stronger the undertow. So if we take today as an example, the wind is cold and strong, and previous weather has been mild. So I know that the undertow is going to be strong, but I also know it will be quite deep due to milder weather we have had. This means the main of the water is warmer. Now this undertow moves and carries food. So how strong is undertow? So when you fish the windward bank, where the undertow is at its strongest, you will notice as your fly or lure drops through the water and reaches the undertow, it will slow the drag on your line created by the wind. I have about 10 foot under the surface and about 40 to 50 foot on the surface, so this suggests that the drag below the surface is greater than on the surface. Okay, a few comparisons as to where the main flow of the undertow could be, and I say could be as it will be different tomorrow, and in a lot of cases it will change throughout the day. So for the first one, warmer conditions. The wind is blowing across with a warmer air. The water is cooler, so the undertow will be about here. Then we move into autumn. The air is now cooler than the water, so the undertow will be about here. But if the air temperature is colder than the top, say 3-4 foot of water, but not as cold as the lower layers, then the undertow should be around midway. So this undertow is travelling up the lake, but if it collides with any obstacle, it will congest and create a strong flow full of food. These obstacles is where we should pay more attention, and it could be anything from a gully, a large rock, or even an island. But for the main of the undertow, it will weaken as it travels up the lake. But at the same time, as it mixes with warmer water, it will move higher in the columns, which will be no surprise to find fish at this end higher in the water. I'll put a cast across the wind just to show you how quick that line will probably move around. I'm playing catch up with it already. It's coming round just in front of me here quite quickly. So you can see the undertow is nowhere near as strong as down the bottom end of the lake. So I have drawn an overhead picture of the water, and the red is undertow, and the thicker red is where it will be concentrated, and the belly on the island helps to funnel it and will then maintain more flow. But then it comes back and collides with the weaker main flow. This then will create turbulence, which means food and shelter. Now if we change the direction of the wind slightly, the effect of the undertow would be about here, and again here. But the effect of the undertow here is not as great, as there is less water to generate the same force as on this side of the island. So if we consider the red lines of undertow as a river flowing, we can imagine the effect at these areas. Now we have two small islands. Again, in summer, with food carried on the wind, we would always go here on the windward banks. But with any food now which could be carried along with the undertow, we should target here. But one thing to remember, in these diagrams, the position as to where the fish could be is determined on the strength of undertow. So the weaker undertow here, but the more undertow, the further upwind you would go. In this shot, if you look here very carefully, you will notice a rolling motion below the surface. This is the effects of undertow. I have a floating line on the water. So now when we cast our line, we know the wind is going to push our line, creating a curve, and then expect our fly to drop, but at a slight angle due to the drag on the line. Now this angle depends a lot on the wind speed. More wind, more angle. But now we have to consider undertow. And as we know, the stronger the wind, the stronger the undertow. Now I can't say for certain as to where the undertow will take my fly, but I do know it is affecting it. So it could be here or even here. So when we talk about tippet length, we should consider the conditions at the time. This year I have picked out for a reason. Now this was back in late August, and there was 3 of us fishing. Undertow at this time of the year is nearly always at the top layers of water due to the warmer air. The boys decided to fish from the island marked with the black X. I then headed for the red X. As it happens, I was constantly hooking fish. The boys between them only managed 1 fish. What we have never really understood is why. But now with a better understanding of undertow, we can see that I was casting up into the current, which puts my fly a lot deeper. The boys were casting down and across, which means their fly was a lot higher. Over the years I have experienced casting to fish with not much success, but by changing my angle could often get a better response from the fish. So this could be due to undertow. I am sure you will hear more about undertow from me in the future. There is a lot more to understand. After all, most of what the fish feed on is below the surface, in the undertow. So I hope you have a bit more of an understanding of undertow, and I will leave you with that day in August.
did it again, mate. Oh, he is on.